Welcome to episode number 28 of Just Go Grind, a show that focuses on helping you start and grow a business, find a career you love, and make a bigger impact in your life. I'm Justin Gordon, your host and an MBA student in the class of 2020 at the USC Marshall School of Business. I've had my hand in entrepreneurship and business since 2012 when I launched Just Go Fitness, and now with Just Go Grind. In this episode, the first episode of 2019, we have Quentin Allums. And Q is a LinkedIn influencer with over 10 million content views. He is the CEO of Urban Misfit Ventures, which is a fast-growing startup in Milwaukee. And he has done some amazing things with video and growing community and growing companies. And in this episode, we go through a lot of different things, including how he got his entrepreneurial start, his failures with a VR company, the different companies he started, because there are a few of them. Even now with Urban Misfit Ventures, there are a few companies under that umbrella. We talk about how he landed a TEDx talk, which will be out in April of 2019, how he spoke at VidCon last year in 2018. So many things related to video and branding and growing businesses, and this episode's dynamite. I'm really excited for you to listen to it. As always, the show notes are at justgogrind.com/podcast. And if you go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and search Just Go Grind, you can support the show by leaving a rating and review and also subscribing. Please do subscribe there. Excited for you guys to check this episode out. Without further ado, here is Q. Q, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you for having me, dude.
Man, reconnecting after the Wisconsin Athletic Club years and years ago, and here we are again, man. It's crazy how things go in life.
It is, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of ways I could introduce you and say what you've done, but why don't you just give a little, your 2 cents on what you do right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So right now I'm the CEO of Urban Misfit Ventures. We own 2 companies, IEEG, which is a storytelling and influencer marketing company, and then we own MK Misfits. So we travel the world and we host events. So I tell stories and I host parties for a living.
Tell stories and host parties for a living, but you did not always do that, by no means. And there's a lot of background here before you got to this point. And it's not like you've been doing this for 20 years. It's relatively new, but at the same time, you've had your hand in lots of different stuff, man. What was one of the first ventures you can think of that you did as like an entrepreneur or trying your own stuff out?
I think there's a lot of different ways I could take that question.
However you want.
I would say for me, the first entrepreneurial thing that I did, there were things when I was a kid and everything, but I would say music. And the reason I say that is because I had to learn how to brand myself. I had to learn how to pitch. I had to learn how, now you're going to get paid. What do you do with this? How much am I saving? How much am I investing back into my business? So I would say just being a musician for 6 years was really, really what taught me that I was not going to work well within that corporate system, within that corporate structure. And I did it. I definitely worked for people, but music for me.
Music. And you said 6 years of music. What got you into music in the first place?
I don't know, dude. Piano lessons were pushed on me as a kid. I hated it. I quit. Saxophone was pushed on me as a kid. I quit. Guitar was pushed on me as a kid. I quit. And then randomly, I was 17 years old or 16 years old, and my mom had just got divorced, and he left a guitar. And for whatever reason, I picked it back up. My dad had played before me, but I picked it up again, and I kept playing, and randomly got good and randomly started performing, but it was an outlet for me. And I got to tell stories through my music, and I got to elicit a response in other people, which I really liked, especially growing up without a voice.
Yeah, and to that point, playing, you say you kept playing. I mean, how much were you practicing back then, a week or a day, or how often were you practicing?
Yeah, so I'm just obsessive about everything. If I love something, I'm going to do it all the time. For me, I would play till my fingers bled, dude. I would write songs. There were periods where I would just stay up. I'd start at 10 p.m. and then stay up until 4 a.m. just writing songs because I would get really creative and really delirious. I played all the time as much as I could.
Yeah, so as much as you possibly could. And then you said 6 years from 16 or 17 till you're 23, 22, so a couple years ago?
22, but is that 6 years? 16, 17, 18.
Roughly.
So 5-6 years. I really stopped when I was 21, 22. I realized it wasn't for me. And that's when I was graduating college. So
okay, around that same time.
Yeah.
So what about it, though, made you think it wasn't quite for you?
because I looked at the future and like just being a musician. Let's say I took off and I became like Ed Sheeran or something. Like that lifestyle just was not attractive to me, and I wouldn't have been making the impact that I wanted. Like I loved the response, eliciting that response in people. I loved like playing and performing, but I also get that same rush from speaking, from growing a company, from all these different things. But now I get to actually make an impact. So.
To that point, and having that self-awareness to know that path wasn't going to be for you. I know a lot of people struggle with their career path and trying to figure out, even what companies to start or whatever it may be. But at that time, graduating college, you were looking in the future and saw this wasn't for you. Like, do you think that was just you innately being aware of that, or did you like read a book about that? Did you, just pay attention to what other people were doing? Like, because not everyone comes to that conclusion. So I'm curious on how you went about that, if you remember that process.
I think I just paid attention to what I was thinking, and I would always ask myself, what do I want to do with my life? Or what am I passionate about? What am I good at? I would always come back to those questions, even though I was playing music all the time. And I think that to me showed me that this is not what I wanted to do. Even though I was trying to force that upon myself, but I would always come back, okay, what are my passions? What am I good at? Where am I going to be in 5 years? Yeah. So just that constant introspection.
Yeah, and I think that's important, especially when you're trying to find out anything in life, because otherwise you're going to waste so much time. And like, we only have so much time. There's one thing that says like try different things out so you can figure out what you want to do. And I think that's perfect. But at the same time, if you can save yourself some time by really doing the thinking ahead of time and being like, okay, this is not going to lead to where I want to go, then you should stop doing it. That's what it seems like.
Agreed.
I know you started a VR company at some point. Can you tell me kind of how that came about in the first place?
Yeah. So within college. In college, I one of my mentors now, his name is Kendrick, incredible like futurist, meaning he studies the future and makes predictions. He sat me down and was like, okay, Q, here's AR, VR, IoT, like all these cool things, and I'm like, damn, like this exists, like right. We're here at this point in time, and I was just mind blown. From there, I'm like, damn, okay, I don't want to just be a marketer. I don't want to just be a social media guy. So I use my marketing skills and my social media skills to leverage, like get my foot in the door with a virtual reality startup and then a wearable tech startup. And I became obsessed. I was offered a full-time job with both of them, but I declined it because, again, I didn't want to be that social media guy. So I launched, I hate school, so I launched a virtual reality. We were working on, I'm going to say launch because we didn't even do anything. We were working on a VR education platform, essentially just learning through simulations, which isn't crazy innovative or anything like that, but launched that, and then I failed and learned a lot about like what kind of leader I am, but it was Kendrick that put me on that path.
Okay. And to that point, so you say you launched that, how much time was invested in that, up to that point of launch? I want to know like the timeline, kind of. I'm just curious on that.
So I graduated 2016 that summer. The timeline was I was working on a few months before I graduated. Worked a full-time job after I graduated for about 7 months. That entire period, I was working on the VR startup and an agency. That's what a lot of people don't know about me because I don't really talk about it. But I was working on two things. So all the throughout the day, agency, night, coding, designing, building, talking to my team, and then I think February 2017 is when I'm like, okay, I can't build two things at the same time. Yeah. I'm going to be more successful building an agency because people actually need this right now. People don't need virtual reality right now. So about 8 months or so.
Okay. Do you think that did you see that changing? I mean, do you think you were just too early with the VR thing, or what do you think?
Too early, and I didn't have money. I didn't have any cash flow. Okay. I was focusing on, okay, how can I make money in the future, not how can I make money right now. Yeah. You can totally make money with VR right now. I just didn't have those capabilities, and I didn't have enough money to survive enough to actually sell something. I totally believe in VR, totally believe in AR and mixed reality. Like, I'm a total tech geek. One of my major goals is to own an esports team. Like, totally about that. For me, too early, and I wasn't experienced enough, and I wasn't dedicated enough because I was trying to do two different things.
Yeah, two different things at once. And to the point, so getting to the point where you're going to stop the VR company, like, what got you there? Because I think a lot of things, too, with companies are like, when do you stop? They say, don't quit. But if you never quit, then you may miss out on things too. So what got you to that point of actually stopping then?
Oh, that's a good question. Again, not a lot of people ask me that. Like, that was probably one of the hardest decisions I had to make personally, because that was my baby, and it was the first time I ever built anything. But the reason I stopped was because I probably would have died if I didn't, because I didn't have any money. I wasn't able to go get clients because I didn't have money, and I was trying to do two things. It was very, very hard for me to say, okay, guys, I'm quitting, because I felt like I was letting everybody down that was following me. I felt like I was letting my team down. But at the end of the day, no one really gave a shit, because it was me that they cared about, not the company.
Yeah, not the company. And you said you had the agency alongside that at the same time. And can you talk a little bit like what was the agency at that time, and like who were your clients? What were you doing?
Yeah, so I started off full stack, meaning I did everything. Literally everything. Terrible decision. And then I pivoted into a lot of different things because I wasn't successful, so I went just social. Okay, we're just going to do social for real estate. Okay, we're just going to do content marketing. And I just moved around. Ultimately, when I actually started making money, and I made money here and there, like doing other things, but
yeah,
I started really making money, one, when I hopped on LinkedIn, but two, when I moved into personal branding. So I was working with coaches, I was working with entrepreneurs, essentially helping them tell their own narrative. And then later on, when I really started making money, I moved into, okay, let's go into companies and teach them that their employees are the greatest asset. So how can we tell our employee story, use our employee story to drive traffic, drive revenue for the company, and then dissolve that really early this year, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with those, who were those first clients, those first few people you're working with? How'd you get them?
Yeah, so the first clients for that agency, one I got because I worked in a coffee shop all the time and I loved their coffee, and I reached out and said, I love this, I'd love to sit down. She was awesome. Another I got because I was on LinkedIn, and his name is Nathan Harris. He's the guy that made me push me to create content on LinkedIn, which then literally resulted in everything I'm doing now. But I reached out and I'm like, hey man, I know you have a huge network of freelancers, but I'd love to talk. And then he was a client that paid me a ton of money to actually survive. He's the reason that I'm literally alive. I'm just indebted to that dude. And he's one of our clients for this company now too. And then third, he was a mental coach for NBA athletes, which is incredible. That's where I started. And he was one of my professors at my school, I think.
Really?
So I use my network and I use LinkedIn to get those first clients.
Have you always, kind of just kept in touch or kept feelers on your network and people you meet? Because that's something where obviously that paid off without you even intending for it to, but you still kept in touch, or you reached out. Have you always done that, or?
Not always. One of my business partners, Izzy, who's literally right across the wall right now, I learned a lot watching him in college because I was a total noob and not social at all. He always kept in touch. Hey, this article reminds me of you. Boom. Hey, you want to get coffee? Just always top of mind. Watching him do that, and then having to grow my company, I always want to be on top of mind. I always want you to think of me when you think of storytelling, when you think of LinkedIn. So now I am, but as growing up, and initially I was not. But yes. Yes,
but you've progressed to that point, and it's so important too. I find that too, even with podcasting now it's been a little bit more than 6 months, and just thinking about guests, and one of my guests I reached out to, and I had met her years ago through couch surfing. I stayed at her couch in San Francisco, kept in touch, and then interviewed her on the show, and then she actually referred me to I don't know, probably half the guests on the show, honestly. Damn. And it's a crazy scenario where I never thought that would happen. It was she said, oh yeah, I shared your podcast with these people and in this group of women entrepreneurs, and I was like, oh great, that'd be awesome. I want to have more variety in the show, and it just took off from there in terms of the people I would get. So it's so powerful to have that network. You just never know where it's gonna go.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned LinkedIn. This is really, we gotta dig into this a little bit. The videos on LinkedIn, I think you did you started a year in a row you wanted to do with videos per day. How did that whole thing with LinkedIn video start for you?
Going back to Kendrick, who introduced me to VR, when I was starting my first company, he came to me and was like, hey, I'm going to interview you. So let's do this. And dude, it was so bad. It was so bad that I'm like, fuck, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be able to pitch myself. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shoot a video every day. I don't care where it's going to go. I'm just going to shoot a video every day for a year. Yeah. And I did that on YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, Ask Whale, all these different platforms. And then when I was moving to LinkedIn, I started writing because I'm a writer as well. Yeah. But they released video. And up to that point, I probably did 500 videos. So I was comfortable and I was ready, and I jumped on. First video I made was hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm uncomfortable, but I'm going to post it anyway, and 30,000 views. And that was a start for me, a video about how I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. And one thing I was looking back at all those videos, a question immediately came to mind is how do you think of what topics to talk about. Some people always like, oh, I don't know, what am I gonna say? I go, you should do video. Yeah, but what do I say? Like, so how did you approach that in terms of content each day? Like, how did you approach it?
I listened. I listened. I was talking all the time about what I was going through, yes, but what were the questions that other people had? What were people saying in my industry? Like, I put my ear to the ground and I listened. And then I talked about what I actually wanted to talk about, but I would say the biggest thing was just listening.
So paying attention to, were you following people on LinkedIn, Instagram? Like, where were you getting that information then to even hear, like, what questions to answer in your videos?
Yeah.
Like, how'd you
so initially it was like, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what happened today. It was a diary. When I moved to LinkedIn, it was more like, okay, now I'm actually building something. Now I know some things. And now people are actually coming to me to ask questions. So I would answer those. But even then, like, I knew that no one was going to listen to it. I was 23 at the time. No one was going to listen to a 23-year-old black Puerto Rican kid talk about personal branding, because why would they listen to him if he doesn't have this huge personal brand? So all I did was tell stories. That's all. Hey, one time I was at the Bucks, they told me this, boom, this was the result. And I would tell stories that I knew would be applicable to the people that I was trying to reach. And that was it. That was literally it. And then all of a sudden people tagging other people, hey, and I would get more and more questions. And that's when I'm like, okay, I just got 7 questions on how to build a personal brand on LinkedIn. I know I need to address that. Or, hey, I just got a question, how do I get an internship? And it had 25 likes. I know I need to touch on that. So just listening.
Yeah, and review it. So that review process, just paying attention along the way, seeing what's hitting more, what videos had more views maybe, that you kind of approach it that way and then kind of go from there. I know you also did a lot of like in-person meetups through LinkedIn. Like, tell me more about that and how that kind of started and what you did with that.
There's this movement called LinkedIn Local. I think like 4 months after I jumped on the platform to create, I flew out to Dallas. Didn't know I was going to end up speaking, but they asked me to speak. Again, it was terrible, just like the first video. And then after that, I just made a declaration that I'm going to master speaking, that I'm going to get a TED Talk, I'm going to do and I did all these things, not TED, but TEDx. But it came through that initial LinkedIn Local, literally just people getting together centered around LinkedIn, which is centered around getting professionals together. And that was it, man.
Yeah. Do you remember how you heard about it in the first place? LinkedIn Local?
LinkedIn. So a lot of people were pushing it. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's just talking about it. Like, oh, what's this thing? And do you have an estimate of like how many different LinkedIn Local events you did, or like roughly, how often you're doing that?
January 2000, was it 17? I don't know. 2018, I think. I made a goal that I was going to do 3 speaking engagements. I did about, I think, more than 12 this year. I don't really have the exact number. It's on my laptop, but like 12, 14.
Yeah.
I think like 5, 6 of those were LinkedIn's.
Okay.
LinkedIn events. After that, I kind of backed off because it got repetitive for me.
Yeah.
But I think 6 or 7, and then we hosted one. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of LinkedIn events. But.
A lot of LinkedIn events. Yeah. And obviously you mentioned the speaking goals and wanting to speak a certain amount of times. And you have a TEDx coming up too. How did that come about, the TEDx?
So the TEDx came up just because I was referred or suggested to an event in California, but I was denied because I wasn't local.
Really?
That was the one thing that was going against me in the application. They loved me. It was just I wasn't local. So that night I looked up just events going on in Milwaukee.
Yeah. And
then I found one, but it was due that day. So I put my application up there. I didn't really have a talk outlined or anything like that because it wasn't in that process for the California one. So I just took a video where I talked about my life and I put it in there. And then they called me. When they called me,
really?
I think I was at a happy hour event, so I was drinking, and then they called me back and they're like, super competitive, but we want you to do this. We choose you.
Really?
And literally my talk wasn't outlined when they chose me. Now I know what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with my life, at least for the most part.
Yeah.
But it just happened because I applied and I asked.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And that's one of the things I'm thinking about the last 6 months of podcasting and getting different guests on. It's like, you just have to ask. I mean, you're never going to get anything if you don't at least try. Agreed. And look at that. It's exactly the point right there. You just did that and there you go. You got it. One thing with speaking too, and you've done so much of it, what is your process like for prepping for something like that? So I'm guessing like the TEDx is going to be a little bit different, but like what is that process like even for how are you preparing for this?
It's a really good question. That first one in Dallas. So I'm like, you point the camera at me, I'll go. Like I'm ready. I got this. Boom. I won't need to think. I won't need to prep. Nothing. I'll just go. First one in Dallas, it was so bad. And the next one, so bad. The next one, so bad. And I realized what I was doing is I was comparing speaking to me speaking at the camera. And I thought that because I'm really good in front of the camera and I can just riff, I'm really good on the microphone, I could just riff, that I'd be really good in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
Because I was a musician, same thing, but it was so far from the truth because they're two different things. They're two different entities.
Yeah.
So now what I'll do is, outline it in video format, just like I would do a video, right? Like, just go, this is what I want to talk about, this is the outline. Okay, then I'll strip, and then I'll write it out, and then I'll actually, I need to hit this point, I need to hit this point, but I do it on video first, and I get comfortable with the topics, and I hate outlining things, but I do it, and then when I'm on stage, now I know what I have to hit, and I can riff, and I can change based off of that. But you gotta stick in this guideline, at least for now. I'm sure, like, a year down the line, I could just go and do it, and I've done things like that, but initially just that comparison between video and speaking really messed me up.
Eventually, I think, go full Gary Vaynerchuk and just have a little thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm just going to take Q&A. Let me just do Q&A.
I did do that.
I think that's the easiest thing to do, though, because if you know the topic so well, like Q&A, because I can answer any question on that. Like, someone did, like, fitness back in the day, like, oh, yeah, you could literally ask me anything, like, okay, I'll have an opinion on it at least. Yeah. So, like, he's a genius for that, by the way, because it's just the easiest thing for him. I'm going to go fly here, make a couple $100,000, and just answer questions all day, which is amazing. And I think
the crowd feels great.
I know. They get their questions answered, and it's perfect. I think they did that. I saw him speak once live, and it was this event with it was Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, and Dave Ramsey, and it was like a one-day event in New York City. And that was the first time in New York City, and I remember like Seth Godin went and killed it, absolutely killed it. His perfect slides where he's like a slide for like every 3 seconds, and I was like, it's on point as he's talking. I was like, wow, Seth just killed it. And then Gary Vee went and also killed it, but it's just a Q&A, and it was just like, oh, this is all he's getting paid to do this right now. It's nuts.
Completely different styles.
Yeah, different styles, but it works, and everyone finds their own thing. And one thing I want to circle back to, with the videos you're doing on LinkedIn, you were doing them so consistently, so every day. Like, what was the biggest challenge of doing that whole thing? I imagine it wasn't always necessarily easy, but
I would say 1, the topic, 2, comparison. Just like seeing everybody else, they got this many views. It took me a while to actually like consistently take off, and everybody around me that I was connecting was just exploding. Yeah. So that 3, probably just like insecurities. And imposter syndrome. Like, do I actually deserve this? Should people actually pay me? I would say that, but heavily on the side of just like, like, what am I going to talk about today? Because doing something every day was hard, but when I started listening, it became easier.
Do you think making it something that you do every day, does that make it in some ways easier? Because you couldn't overthink it, you just had to do it?
I talk a lot about just habit, just the power of habit. Like, it's so much easier to do a video every day than it is every other day. Yeah. Because you break that habit in every other. Yeah. So if you do something every day, it's so much easier.
I feel the exact same way. Even like with fitness stuff, I tell people, like, I'd rather have you work out for like 10 or 15 minutes and just do it daily than try and make this thing like, 3 times a week, but it's like an hour, all these different things. Like, have some type of daily habit. It seems to work so much better, man. Yeah. I find in my own life too. I'm like, when I skip, I'm like, shit, now I'm completely off and everything. And that's like the Casey Neistat way of vlogging. When he started, it was like, he did it for like 500 some days in a row. Like, he just like wanted to put out content. So it's just like, we're going to put out a video every day and then go from there. And obviously helped him explode. He's already amazing, clearly, but like helped him explode, especially when you have the talent. And it's like, it just takes off from there.
1000%, dude. Man. Like, successful people, they build powerful habits. So that's it. That's not it, but it's a lot of it.
Well, because that's what everything's built off of, right? Everyone has the same amount of time in the day, but like, how are you spending your time? And I just listened to James Clear's book about Atomic Habits, and it was the same type of thing of like just the reminders of those habits and what to build, and thinking that moving towards 2019, because you're always trying to like get more and more efficient and productive, and like, where do you squeeze out more time? It's just building habits, man. That's all it is. To that point, like, so you did the video a day on LinkedIn. When did you stop that? Did you ever? Streak's still going, or you stopped?
So no, I don't do daily anymore. Okay. I do it when I want, and that's the biggest thing. I found that I have this habit. Cool. Yeah. Let's hold on to that, but more like, instead of creating content because I want to make money or because I want to be known, let's create content that's valuable. So now I treat LinkedIn kind of like Twitter. Like, I feel like I want to do something, let's do it, right? I want to bring value today, let's do it. I do want to be there as much as possible, but I'm not going to be mad at myself because I have a company to grow. Yeah. And I had bigger goals than just posting on LinkedIn. So I don't do it every day anymore, but I do it a lot.
So did that stop? Like right after the year you did it, or was it like?
I didn't do daily for that long on LinkedIn. I posted and was always engaging. Not daily videos.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know what to say in terms of when I stopped that because I don't know how long I actually did like just straight daily on LinkedIn at least.
Yeah.
But I'm always posting some sort of content. I do it when I want.
Yeah. And how did those videos, I mean, like the consistent videos on LinkedIn, how did that help your company grow or progress you towards where you're at now, essentially?
Yeah. What I like to do is I like to look at my growth versus the other creators on LinkedIn and their growth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have just taken off in terms of numbers.
Okay.
And me, I took off a lot slower. But then, okay, boom, there's this big explosion. 2,000 likes, 4,000 likes. 2,000 likes, 1,000, just all in the same week.
Yeah.
That took me a while to achieve, but the one difference between what I've done versus a lot of people, there's other people that have done something similar as well, but I built a brand and I built something that was recognizable. You think of me, you think of the black heart, you think of me wearing all black, you think of the black hat, you think of the Vulcan salute, all these different brand anchors that I put around myself. You also think of Misfits and this brand and this community that I built. That is 1,000% what set me apart, and it's what's accelerated my business. So, like, literally, my Mad Genie agency that I had before, we tripled our monthly business revenue within the first month of me being on LinkedIn. This company, we're one of Milwaukee's fastest growing startups because, one, I was on LinkedIn, but now all of my team is on LinkedIn and on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook, and we're creating consistent content. We're building this world and in this Misfits community. So, LinkedIn's like 1,000% just disrupted our entire world and just accelerated our business.
Yeah, and to that point of creating content, like, how do you approach that now? As you're obviously you have clients and everything, but there's a lot of different things going on. How do you approach the content creation process as you grow your company now?
Yeah, before I was like, okay, there's this video. What do you guys think? Let's do it. Now I'm really, really honing in the fact that, okay, we need to be a real company. We need to be adults. So what's our storyboard process? What happens when a client comes in? Okay, what's our process for internal projects? Okay, what's our project process for each of our individual brands as well? How we approach that, typically it's like, okay, everybody step away. Everybody's got their ideas. Okay, now pitch them. Okay, pitch it. Okay, pitch it. No one say anything. Okay, now let's bounce off of each other. Okay, now let's define it. That's kind of how we're doing it now. But throw a bunch of shit at the wall and then figure it out from there. And then, okay, now let's define it.
Is it like a goal of the daily, of a weekly process? Is this like let's plan ahead this week? What are we doing? Because I like to dig in the details, man. So
yeah,
how does that go with you guys?
Right now, it is weekly. Okay, here's what we got going on for our clients. Here's what we got going on for events. Here's what we have going on for each of us individually as well. Here's what we have going on for just internal content. And then weekly, and then we break it down. Okay, this needs to happen on this day. This needs to happen on this day. And then we do have a daily meeting as well, where again, okay, what's going on this day? Okay, let's go do it. And that's kind of the process.
How are you organizing that? Is it like a whiteboard thing? Is it like something like Trello? Like, how are you guys doing that?
So we've got a chalkboard wall out there. Then we have whiteboards. And then we use Monday.com. We're testing things out.
Yeah.
We don't like Trello. We don't like Todoist. Like, some of us like things, others don't, which is the difficult part. But Monday.com seems to be the best so far for us.
What about that is? What do you like about it?
I don't know, man. I really don't.
Well, there's so many different tools. That's why you gotta ask. It's like I don't
know what it is, but more people like that one than any others. I don't like Trello. I don't know why, but Monday reminds me of Trello and Todoist together. Okay. If that makes it's very interesting, and I like it. The team's liking it so far. So.
Okay. Has that been challenging as you guys grow, or like in terms of managing all the people, like from the beginning till where you're at now? Like,
yeah,
how has that evolved?
Yeah, so that's fascinating. Culture's like, I'm just hyper focused on that right now. Initially, it's like, okay, yeah, it's the founders, and then we brought on interns, and then it was like, okay, I had to handle a lot just in terms of people. Yeah. Now we just brought on Chandler, our project manager, and I've literally offloaded everything I was doing on him except for selling and like brand stuff, which is awesome. So like, it's just so cool seeing everybody pitch in. I don't feel like I manage anybody at all anymore. Everybody, they don't need me. I don't want to be someone's boss. I can be. Okay, you fucked up. Okay, let's fix it. But like, I don't need to be someone's boss. And that's what I love. They're all way better at what they do than if I were to do it.
And you said founders. How many people did it start with?
So it started initially with 3, and then we brought Izzy in right away. So four founders.
Okay.
And 4 equity partners.
What are you up to now?
We've got a team of 11 if you include my doc. So 10.
Okay. Man, well, congrats. That's awesome. It's a quick amount of time, too, to get to that point. I know you mentioned that your agency, Mad Genie, that dissolved earlier this year?
Yeah, earlier this year.
Why did that dissolve versus something new now? What's the difference? Like, what,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, what are you guys doing?
So before, I was going to companies teaching them that their employees are the greatest asset. So let's tell our story, employee story, to drive traffic and revenue for the company. That was like easily I could have made 6 figures. I was the only person on staff at the end of it, at least. I started the company because, again, I wanted to make an impact.
Yeah.
2, I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to do it with people that I loved, and I wasn't doing that. And regardless of how much money I would have made, that was not what I wanted to do. So I stepped away. I met Eric through Twitter, and I convinced a lot of people to jump on LinkedIn. All of them fell off. He was one that created content for 90 days straight. I didn't even
90
do
days
that.
straight.
I didn't. So I'm like, dude, okay, let's do something.
Props.
I started a YouTube channel. And then I'm like, okay, I want to do something more. What do you think of this? Let's start a company. And then we met Brema, brought him in. He's like, I love what you're doing. And Izzy and I were college roommates. So I'm like, dude, like you're in this weird transition point. I need what you have. And I'm still to this day surprised that he said yes. But we took off. And initially it was, okay, we're just going to be an agency. We're just going to create content. But then we're like, okay, where do we want to go? What do we want to achieve? So now we've got this umbrella company, Urban Misfit Ventures. We own an agency. Let's tell stories. And now we're building up a team where that can just run itself. And then we own MK Misfits, which is an events company. And we're going to be hyper-focused on hosting these awesome, quirky experiences for people in 2019. And now we're also talking about acquiring and building a fashion brand as well. So we're just building companies underneath us that we don't actually have to run. We don't actually have to manage. We just own them.
Yeah. So the umbrella company and then having these different things with that. And how do you decide, even like the fashion thing, for instance, like how do you decide you want to do that? And how do you decide the events thing? What's that process like for you? And is it very like organic? Is it like, intentional, like this is what we want to do? Like how do you go through that and think of what's next for the company?
Yeah, so most of that is on my plate. Again, going back to my futurist friend, like that's me as well, right? I'm very strategic. I'm very futuristic. That's me. The brand strategy, that is typically all me. Like, of course, like I consult them when we talk.
Of course.
So it's all super, super intentional. And again, where do we want to go? People ask us what's our end goal. I can't answer that. I know in my head, but if I answered it, I'd probably look insane. And I just don't want to talk about that.
World domination. Point blank. I asked someone else, and that's what they said. I was like, I get it. It's world domination. You don't have to even say it. I'll say it for you. I get it. I get it.
Thanks.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
But yeah, it is super intentional. But what do we want to try? What avenues where do we want to go?
Yeah.
And I do want to get back into tech, and I want to use fashion as an avenue to do that.
Yeah.
Whether that makes sense to people, I don't care, because we're going to do it regardless. If it fails, it fails. We move on.
Yeah.
But
you try something out, and so be it. But you're going to try it. The events company, that's something I've also thought with the stuff I'm doing in LA is like, those events are so powerful. One, for connecting people. Two, for just being able to ask them questions and like learning things. And like, I'm fascinated by that. And that's something I've been talking to people about and figuring out what I want to do with that. What are some of the things you like to do with your events in Milwaukee or whatever else moving forward to 2019?
Diversity is a big one. A lot of people talk about diversity. Not a lot of people do anything about it because they're too busy talking about it. I think the easiest way to create a diverse event is to have a diverse team. So that's something I'm trying, not even trying, that's something I have intentionally focused on just as we're building our team. Let's be diverse. Let's have everybody at the table. So diversity is huge because then you're going to reach so many more people and you're going to attract so many more people because they're going to feel welcome regardless of socioeconomic class, race, gender, whatever. So that diversity has been huge. Another thing, I'm not afraid to ask for money, and I'm not afraid to ask for things for free. So events, I don't want to pay you. Can I do this? I'll drive this much traffic. We'll do this for you. Or, hey, you want to sponsor this? And we have our sponsor package listed, and we know how much traffic we drive. Not only that, we know our value. So you're not just getting this one. We're not just bringing in this many people once. Also, we might come again, but also, okay, now we're going to create a video. Okay, now you're going to get promotion through Q's brand and Chandler's brand and Kylie's brand and Izzy's brand and everybody on my team and my entire company. Hell yeah, you should be paying us, but we'll come for free. So just knowing our value and not being afraid to ask for anything has been huge for us, but also, again, that diverse team.
Yeah.
And just in terms of what we want to do, we want to be quirky. We want to bring value.
Yeah. So what types of things would that be? I mean, you don't have to spill all your secrets, but like, what are some things you would like to do in terms of like what the events actually look like?
So right before you got here, we had an event, we didn't have an event. We had a meeting.
Yeah.
Hey guys, anything goes. Just bring your ideas, bring them in Monday. It's Monday, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes. It's Monday.
Bring them in Monday. We'll
I know,
talk about them.
Same.
And then pitch to everybody. And that's what we did. And like just weird, quirky stuff. And then let's bounce off of each other. So something we're talking about now, one of the things that I can mention, we're going to be doing like this. Okay, let's take everybody's, let's do Instagram installations. Let's take them offline, Instagram installations with these people. Let's do a fashion show in the middle where we're going to launch this thing that we're going to do. Around that, let's do networking. On the side, you'll have a jazz band with a rapper and like just entire interactive piece people go to and they're like, damn, I had fun. Damn, I met somebody. Damn, I took away this. So just weird stuff.
Yeah. And hearing all this, one of the questions I had to ask is, how are you deciding what you spend your time on and how you spend your time throughout the week, throughout a day? I'm curious on how your schedule goes, or like if you could talk a lot.
So time is money.
Yeah.
Again, I think a lot of people, and I'm futuristic, but a lot of people focus on the future. How can I make money in the future? Not how can I make money right now? Not what's working right now. We haven't had to do any outbound sales. We're focusing on it now as of like today, but we haven't had to. It's all been inbound. So, okay, where is that coming from? Oh, it's a videos. Okay, let's double down on videos. So what's making us money? And then once you're making enough money, okay, what's going to make us money in the future? And that's it, dude. Like, we create a lot of content because, again, it makes us money. It's also fun, and it gets the word out. I'm focused on hiring and bringing on the right people and culture in the future of our brand, but it's what's going to make us money now, and then once we got that down, what's going to make us money in the future? And then what do we actually want to be doing?
And could you give a split on that maybe, about how much of your focus is on the now versus the future? Because, I mean, as a CEO, of like, that's a lot on you for the future stuff, but you obviously have to run the day-to-day somewhat too. Like, what's the split of that, or how do you do
so
that?
So me personally, or just
you personally.
Okay, so for me personally, a lot of it was, okay, I'm everywhere until we brought on Chandler. So now Izzy is a lot of the day-to-day, which I love because I'm all about the future. Of course, I still need to be there, and I need to make sure people are doing things and things are getting done. So I would say, like, for me personally, I work all the time, so whatever, but like 50% is probably on the future. They don't even know that, but for me, 50% is all about the future. And from there, it's hiring, it's sales, relationships. That probably takes up the most of my time. Creating on social, and then just chilling with the team, talking to the team. But a lot of my focus is on the future and where we want to go and defining the brand that we want to build.
Yeah. I'm going to say this in air quotes, but what does a typical day for you look like?
Yeah, so
from morning to the evening.
So I'm all about the habits. So I get up anywhere from 4 to 6:30 a.m. Straight away, meditate, shower, blah, 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 blah. I'll work out 3 times a week now because I want to get back into just being healthy because I just ate shit for 2 years. And like so getting back healthy. So I lift 3 times a week, and then if I don't lift, I'll run my dog down to the office. This is changing, but I like to come in the office early, but also I've noticed that I'm not effective if I'm in here all the time. So I work as soon as I'm done lifting and all that, typically around 6 to 7 a.m. Okay. I'm working. I get everything done. People come in the office 8 to 9. I'm probably done with work by 10. But then I get to, okay, let's create content. Okay, let's go have meetings. Let's do all these different things. So anywhere from like 11 a.m. to 2 is typically my meetings. And then after that, like whatever I want to do. But typically in the office, helping my team create videos, helping with the creation process, and whatever needs to get done, man. It's hard day-to-day wise, especially since we do so much, but I'm typically in the office or working by 7 a.m.
Okay.
Maybe a little early if I'm up at 4, and then whatever happens that day.
Yeah, you never know. I guess it depends too on like clients, and it's a little more unstructured, let's just say, especially in this type of world, it seems like. I'm wondering, with the long-term like planning, vision, future, is that more of like a setting aside time to do that, or how do you approach that? Because I know for me, like myself, it's never like a set schedule, but there is times where I'm like, okay, let's really think about the future direction I want to go. Yeah. Other times your head's down, just grinding out, cranking out podcasts, finding new guests, whatever. Like, how do you approach that? Do you block off time, or how do you plan for the future and make time for that?
So I just go based off of how I am as a human being, and my head's always in the future. always in the future, and I have to force myself to focus on the present sometimes. But for me, when I'm inspired and I'm thinking about the future, I'm listening to a podcast, always drawing stuff, always writing it down, and then connecting. There's a lot of ideas that I have that just don't make sense, but then 5 months down the road, I'm like, damn, this connects. There's a lot of things that we do sometimes that it's like, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but maybe it will, and it ends up making sense, or maybe it doesn't, but typically it ends up making sense. So for me, it's just a state that I'm always in.
Yeah.
But that's how I operate.
Yeah.
And I tell them all the time, like, I'm more of a CVO versus a CEO. But the way that the team's structured and just having a creative business, it makes sense.
Yeah. And you mentioned the hiring part was a big part of what you have to do as well. I know you talked a little bit before we actually jumped on the podcast, but like, how are you approaching hiring in terms of a few things? One, I was always like, when to hire and how many people and all that, like the numbers wise of like the team, and then where do you actually find them? I just want to talk a little bit about that because I know everyone's who starts a company, eventually they're going to probably hire people, and I want to hear your approach to that.
Yeah.
What you've done.
Just having the 2 companies before this, the biggest mistake I made was the people and the culture. So I wanted to be super intentional about that, and I made that clear right away. You'll find you put a job application out, or you put a job request out there, right? You need to hire. You will always, for the most part, get the most desperate people, not the most talented people. Just because those people are looking for jobs. The most qualified people are probably already in a position. Not all the time, but mostly already always in a position. So for us, we don't even put out those requests. Sometimes we'll make videos, but typically we're just looking. And like up until we hired Chandler, and now our full-time videographer, one of our full-time videographers, Rob, as well, like we needed those 2 positions for probably 3-4 months before that. So we're just super picky, but we have to go to those people. I think both of them reached out, but typically it's like, okay, what are we looking for? Okay, let's go on Instagram, let's go look. Okay, let's go on LinkedIn. Who's crushing it right now?
Yeah.
And we're startups, so we can't offer them a crazy lavish life, but we have to go to those people, and then you find those people that buy in. What was the other half of that question?
No, well, one was wondering when, and then like
when,
how many people. Yeah.
Just in terms of when, like, again, like we needed those people. We needed those people, but we still said no when we were overworked just because they didn't fit the culture.
Yeah.
When is when you find the right people. In terms of when do you know you need to hire is like, okay, I can't do any more of this. We're at our capacity. That for me was when we knew we needed to hire, but then we also found that person. Like we couldn't take on any more clients. We couldn't do any events because we were at our capacity.
Yeah, kind of maxed out that side, and for a while he maxed it out, and then he had to bring people on. When you were doing those LinkedIn videos, I just thought of this now, but did you have a videographer at any point? Or was it just you? Like, how did that process go?
So initially, all the videos I did before LinkedIn alone, just me.
Okay.
When I jumped on LinkedIn for the first 9 to 10, 11 maybe months, it was just me as well.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about video. And then when I met Eric, and I believe that was 8 months ago, when I met Eric and we decided to do this 8 months ago, that's when we decided to do this. But even then, it was still me doing my videos and editing my videos. It wasn't probably until about 3 months ago where, and I still edit some, but 3 months ago where I'm like, okay, Dids, can you color this? Or hey, Rob, yo, boom, 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 do what you got to do. But for the most part, it's been me that's edited and done all of my videos.
Yeah. Well, that leads perfectly to what I want to ask too with the video process. Like, one, the creation process, and two, the promotion process. Like, can you talk a little bit about like, creating them, some key things to that? Because obviously people are going to be wondering, like, hey, I want to do videos. Like, how do you do it? Just speak to that creative process and how you guys have approached that.
Yeah, so for me, it's always what's the story?
Story first.
Literally, what's the story? After that, it doesn't matter. To me, anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, good example, Will Smith. Most of his stuff's done on a phone. Crushes it, right? On Instagram, freaking crushes it.
He does. I remember he first came on. I was like, oh,
incredible.
he's gonna kill it.
He's
watch out.
Incredible. He completely reinvented himself. But what's the story? Doesn't matter if it's this crazy, like, this is my life, or here's an apple. What's the story? Like, what is the story? Get that right, you'll be okay. I would say don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about the details. Don't worry about the software, the equipment. Just what's the story? You get that right, and you can crush it with anything. There's a dude that shoots photos with a freaking Game Boy, 8-bit photos, like crushes it. There's a story in those things, right? So what's the story?
I'm always just curious about that in that process of how you actually go create it. So there's the story, but then people are wondering too, like best practices on there. So you have a story, and then what? Like I know you guys, I've seen your progression a little bit, and you're tagging a bunch of people here on LinkedIn with this post. You had the write up in
terms of
like, so that like promoting it as well. What's the things that are working and you've learned over the last year or two you've been doing it?
Yeah, for me, it's like I always want to There's a quote, always be trying to put yourself out of business. I think a lot of people get stuck in the same thing. Specifically LinkedIn, like things are always changing, but even Instagram, even YouTube, even just mediums themselves, always be trying to put myself out of business. But like, what do people actually want to see? What are the stories they want to see? People don't want to be promoted to, like they don't want to be sold. So how can I get people to want to buy into this? How can I get people to want to care? Those are things that I'm thinking about and always testing. In terms of what works, I just can't answer that because there is not one thing that works. Literally anything could work. It's just what works for you.
Yeah.
And for us, it was, okay, let's build the personal brands and let's care about people, and then they will care about us. And from there, we can do anything we want. We can sell anything that we want.
Yeah. And with that, who are like your ideal customers, ideal clients that, for Urban Misfit Ventures, for that side of things, for not obviously the events, but for this side, like working with clients, who are those ideal clients and what are you kind of helping them with?
Yeah. So the only niche that we have is storytelling.
Yeah.
So we don't do any social media management. We don't do any like traditional content marketing. We just create the content. We give it to you. We have some other services, but for the most part, that's it. Let's create content. That's our niche. So we can work with anybody. And I actually prefer that. We've done a lot of sports things. We did some stuff in esports, which I love, some stuff in tech, some stuff with founders, but for the most part, the only niche is storytelling.
Creating stories for brands, basically. And what are some keys to that? I mean, everyone, I've heard storytelling being talked about, especially more recently, because it's so important for any brand. You see the progression of things, especially with social media. The progression of brands being able to tell their story, and the ones that can tell it better clearly resonates better with the audience and everything. But what have you found that's maybe some keys or what's been useful in terms of storytelling and what works? Or obviously a lot of things can work, but you know what I mean, what you found at least.
Yeah, I would say one, have a beginning, middle, and end, or at least take them from point A to point B. That's a huge thing and often forgot about it. I don't really know why. Two, who are you speaking to? Really, really understand who you're speaking to. And I would say that's going to be the most important part. You could have this amazing video, you can have this incredible story, but if you're pushing it out on TikTok and you're trying to target 70-year-old men, it's not gonna work. So who are you speaking to? Where are they? Where are they hanging out? Who are they talking to? You understand that and you'll be fine. Three, I would say just don't be afraid to experiment and do different things. Don't be like, there's a quote, I was listening to a podcast, Brittany Hoffman's Beyond Influential, incredible podcast, but she was interviewing Sean Cannell, who's this big YouTuber, and he said, different is better than better. And I totally agree. And I think that just speaks to my entire life. It's the reason I took off on LinkedIn. It's the reason my company has taken off. We're not the best storytellers in the world. We're good at it, but we're not the best. We're just really, really good at doing what we do. We're different. So different is better than better. Don't be afraid to change and try new things. But have a beginning, middle, end, or take them from A to B. And then know who you're speaking to, know who your audience is.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well some different resources there. And I always have to ask guests, like, where they're learning from and the best resources that have helped them kind of along in their journey. If there's any ones that you can mention now, I'd love to give them a little shout out. Any resources, books, podcasts, anything that's been helpful for you.
So I'm a little weird. So I'll speak what works for me, and then maybe I'll talk about what's worked for like my founders.
Sure.
For me, I love Beyond Influential, podcast by Brittany Hoffman. Incredible, really, really good at actionable tips. I would say this one actually is one of the better I've been on. That's like, okay, what are some actionable steps? A lot of podcasts struggle with that. So Beyond Influential is really, really good. I'm obsessed with Jason Silva. He's really good at taking complex ideas and communicating to children. His audience isn't kids, but taking a really complex thing and making it simple. And then 3, I'm weird. Like, I am obsessed with just Blizzard Entertainment, if you know who they are, like WoW and Overwatch. Overwatch specifically, like the way that they roll out these characters and their backstories, and their fan base cares about these people, and they create art about these people, and there's comics and all these different things, just freaking incredible.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I'm paying attention to, not marketing agencies, not anyone in my industry, because I don't give a shit what they're doing. It's what is everybody else doing outside of my industry, and how are they applying storytelling to what they're doing, because storytelling is everywhere.
Yeah.
But you can learn something from everything. In terms of like strict resources, YouTube for sure. Like, 2 of our founders, including, I didn't graduate, but 2 of my founders they dropped out of school completely. And they're some of the most creative people I've ever worked with. YouTube, Udemy, just anything like that. There's so much information out there. LinkedIn, like just go and reach out to people like, hey, I love what you do. Do you want to get coffee? Or hey, I love what you do. Do you want to hop on a video chat? All day. LinkedIn is the greatest backdoor out there. Also things like Shaper, which is like Tinder, but for business professionals, like just utilize those things and get in front of the people that are actually doing the things you want to do. But for sure, YouTube and Udemy and things like that. And actually doing things, actually going and shooting those videos and telling those stories, you're going to learn a lot.
Where do you get new suggestions from in terms of, oh, you have to see this video, or you have to like listen to this podcast, or how does that happen for you? And
there's a few things I would say. One, I built my own community, which has been the most beneficial thing. My Misfits group, and now my own podcasting group as well. They tell me everything. Hey, check this out. Hey, you'd be good. Go work with them. Like, it's incredible. And then I help them out in turn. Two, like, I consume a lot. Alan Gannett, who's an incredible speaker and just sold his company and was acquired by another one, I think. He wrote a book, The Creative Curve. He says every genius, he spoke to just creative geniuses all over the world, but every genius consumes a lot and they create a lot, essentially is the premise of the book. So I create a lot, yes, but I also consume everything. So I'm always scouring, always looking, always reading, always listening to podcasts and things like that. Yeah,
and there's so many different things too, because it is hard to choose as well, because there is so much content out there and there's so many good people. It's like it can make you freeze almost, because there's just so much out there to even look at. I think I start with like, oh, read this book, which leads to another book. They mention someone else, and then they meet someone else, and I don't think it necessarily matters as much that you really be so specific, like, oh, I have to listen to this and this, but the fact that you are consistently consuming and getting different ideas, I think it's important that you mention people outside of like media or whatever your typical agencies, because you get perspectives from other places, which then feed into what you're doing. You can look at that objectively and be like, okay, that makes sense for my business in XYZ way, where someone else maybe they get stuck in the same path of everyone else, and it seems like it doesn't work as well that way.
Agreed.
In that type of capacity. As you're going about building these businesses, and as you've learned things over the course of the last few years, how do you manage the ups and downs that entrepreneurship inevitably has? How do you manage those ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and take care of yourself?
Yeah, this is something that is just always a work in progress. Something that is very hard and something that a lot of entrepreneurs neglect. And I don't want to be that. I've seen a lot of people fall. I've seen a lot of people crash and burn. So for me, it's allowing myself to feel what I need to feel. If I'm sad, I need to cry. If I'm angry, I need to punch my punching bag. If I'm like whatever it is, I just need to feel those emotions so that in turn I could then be happy. Because if you hold on to things, it's just going to eat at you. So I meditate. I read a lot. I'm talking to people about it, and I use my content as therapy. If I'm angry, like I'll tell you and I'll talk about it. If I'm happy, like I'll talk about it, and I talk to my followers and my community. But the most important thing is allowing myself to feel those things. Now, like more than ever, I used to be a college athlete, and I lost like 20 pounds like starting my company because I wasn't eating, and I just was not taking care of myself. So I'm getting back into health and fitness and just taking care of my body, my mind, my soul, everything. And I think that's neglected with a lot of entrepreneurs. One, because it's very, very hard to focus on yourself and the company at the same time. And okay, I've got employees, but forget about it, man.
Yeah.
So my health and just allowing myself to feel.
Yeah, and I know the community part, like you mentioned briefly there too. What did you do to grow that community? What do you continue to do to grow the community you fostered over the last, I don't know how long you've had it for, but what have you done to grow that community?
The biggest thing is I kept showing up. It started with like 15 people.
Yeah.
15 people, and I remember another guy started a community around the same time. His died, mine didn't, but mine turned into 16 people, 17 people. 20 people, 100 people. Okay, now it's 800, 1,000. And that's really all you need. Of course, we want to be bigger, and we will be bigger.
Yeah.
And that's just like our Facebook group, but showing up consistently. More importantly, though, I would say I always compare things to like me building communities on video games.
Yeah.
If you would build like a guild in this game, right? Like they see the leader, yes, but more importantly, there's 2 people or 3 people underneath that are really good and experts at whatever it is that they are. They drive the community, but underneath them, you have people that believe in those experts. Then they believe in the leader. And then everybody that comes in on the outside, they see that ecosystem. So just making sure that everybody in the community or guild brings value, receives value. And I think that's important. Everybody, like feeling that you bring value is very, very important. But also getting that value is very important. So showing up and then making everybody feel welcome.
And showing up for you, was that just checking in daily, checking in consistently on people, asking, like, what did that look like for you?
So my group, essentially, like House of Misfits, essentially all it is a bunch of misfits, which is entrepreneurs, influencers, just creatives, weird people that are owning that, typically entrepreneurs, helping one another. So for me, showing up every day and talking about what I was going through, but also what I was learning, also answering people's questions, but every day, even if it was just me talking, I would show up. And that was it.
Yeah,
just bringing value.
And it's grown over time. And to the point, like, you know, you kept it going. How long has it been going, roughly?
It's been, I want to say 2 years, man.
Yeah, 2 years of growing it. Yeah. What's the motivation behind continuing to grow that? The thing is that there's so many different projects. I know you're working on a lot of different stuff, and people, they start things, they quit. They start things, they quit. What is it that makes you keep going with all these different types of ventures? I know you mentioned, like, stopping one of them, but, like, what makes you keep going, even like the community specifically?
I would say one, like I want to have a legacy and I want to leave an impact. Agencies are cool, and I have one. That's definitely not my end goal. I want to leave a real impact with cool things that I can talk about another time. Two, like, I remember what it was like working in my bedroom in a 500 square foot room, just crying every night and, like, cuddling my dog, not having any support in the startup scene, like, not being able to have access, being that weird black kid that I felt like I couldn't bring any value. I remember that feeling so vividly, and I never ever want anybody to feel that again. So that is a reason. I feel like a lot of people say that, but, like, that's the reason. I remember that so vividly, and that sucked, dude. Like, that royally sucked. And now, like, anyone has a startup, they approach me, yo, if I see it, I'm gonna help, because I remember that, and I just want everybody to have access. I want everybody to be able to make it, because ultimately everybody can if they keep going. Yeah,
I mean, one of the big things with the companies I've started with, Just Go Fitness and now Just Go Grind, it literally starts with Just Go. I mean, you have to get going. You have to start, because so many things can happen if you take action, but many people don't, or they delay it for so long. It's like, if you would just have started, you're gonna fuck up a lot. But at the same time, then that whole process of you messing up for a year or 2 years, then you're already past that, and then you can move on to the success. You know, it just takes some time. With your companies and everything you're doing, what do you have planned for the future? What do you want to happen in the future? I want to kind of look forward a little bit now. I know we've kind of looked back. Like, what does the future look like, and what do you hope it kind of turns into? You know,
we want to build business. We want to own businesses. We don't want to run the businesses. Ultimately, agency, we want to build a team that can essentially take care of it themselves. We want to, when we acquire this fashion brand, we'll have a different CEO that runs that fashion brand. So own businesses, but not necessarily run them. I want everybody around me to be okay. Everybody around me to be financially stable. We want to be able to take anyone around the world and put them on our platform, and they explode. Their story gets out there and they reach whoever they want to reach. For me personally, I don't want to go, like, too deep in the future. Like, I want to do some weird things, dude. Like, I want to be part of the marketing team that, like, essentially, like, pushes out, okay, let's colonize, oh my God, the colonization of Mars. I want to be part of that marketing team.
Working with Elon?
Yeah, dude, like, that'd be dope. That'd be so dope.
That would be dope.
But, like, I would say immediate, like, next 5 years, of course, like, company, grow that, grow the different companies, but ultimately, like, I want to own or invest in an esports organization. Yep. That's one of my major goals. Smaller major goals, like that's the immediate future for me. So talking to people in that space, staying up to date on that space, but also building myself up and my brand up to the point where I can just go out and do that.
Yeah, you know, I have to go back real quick though to the colonization of Mars thing, because so at USC they have so many speakers come all the time, right? And so we had our Entrepreneur and Venture Management Association, one of the big student organizations for MBAs. We had our fireside chat, and one of the people on the fireside chat was the 8th employee at SpaceX. And he literally, like, of course he had name drop Elon in this when he's talking, but it was like, and we saw a picture of, like, early SpaceX. It's like, yeah, literally like 10 people there. He's there. Elon's like 2 people over or something with, like, I thought they had, like, some party or something. And it's like, and he talks about it, and just like, holy shit, man, you were there at the beginning of this thing. Like, and it's, clearly it's gone so far with being able to land rockets back on Earth and everything with that. And it's, you see the progression, you're like, oh my God, and he was one of those first people. And it made you think about, like, it's real. Like, there are real people who did this and started this, and, like, they just have an idea, like, oh, what's next? You know, oh, we're going to buy these rockets from, like, whatever, Russia or something. Nope, can't do that. It's too expensive. Oh, what does it take to actually make a rocket? And you just go. It makes me think of businesses, and even like what you're doing. Like, you just get started and you figure it out and you keep going, and then things happen.
Dude, that's entrepreneurship, man.
Man, that's all it is.
We don't know what we're doing. We just find something that works, and then we lead into it.
Right, and then things fail, but then you find something that works, so you get some traction. And even if you have to, like, get a job for a bit and then come back to it or whatever, like, you'll figure it out. And I think when you go, it seems like when you have that kind of mindset, like, you just can't be stopped, because eventually you're going to make it, like, whatever it ends up being. On that note, though, I want to get your last words here of what, any advice you would give to any aspiring entrepreneurs, people thinking about starting companies or in the midst of starting a company, because you've obviously gone through failed companies, you've had more successful companies, but last words, any parting advice for any entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, that's always a tough one, man.
It is.
I feel like I'm giving so many of these. Entrepreneurs out there, dude. I would, in all honesty, like, I don't.
Speak the
I'm
truth,
doing
whatever.
it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it. Like, I am I just turned 25. Like, I wear a big black hat. Like, people call me weird all the time. I built my company around just being the fact that we are weird. Like, I am doing it. The only thing that sets me apart from everyone else is that I kept going. And I know everybody says that, but, like, just find something that works. And that might take you failing 29 times. Maybe that 30th is going to take off. So just find something that works and lean into that. But that requires going, and then that requires you to keep going. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Keep going.
Where can people find you, hear about you online? Yeah, learn more about you.
So if you want to learn everything about me, Pinterest. Look up my name. That's
everything's on Pinterest.
Oh yeah, dude. Pinterest.
Little did I know. Man, I have to.
You want to know anything about anyone?
Some more digging. Oh, yeah. The internet has everything. You'll find it. So Pinterest is one place to find you. Little do you know.
Otherwise, tag JustQ on any platform, you'll find me. LinkedIn, of course, like, that's my main one, but anywhere. I love Instagram too, so just @tag JustQ. And then our website is being redeveloped, and I'll send you that, but urbanmisfitventures.com. Okay. Otherwise, mkmisfits.com is where we are at now.
Okay. A couple different spots. So everyone check them out. Q, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man.
Appreciate you coming by, man.
It's good times.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Just Go Grind. As always, the show notes are over at justgogrind.com/podcast, and you can support the show over at patreon.com/justgogrind. And please leave a rating and review over on iTunes. It does help more people find the show. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a great day.